Continue to be supportive of taxing the wealthy.
Mayor Mamdani is ramping up the pressure on Governor Hochul to raise taxes on wealthy New Yorkers, despite the governor's opposition.
It's the ultimate long-term deal, and I think it puts everybody in a really good position.
In Switzerland today, President Trump said that he has agreed to the framework of a deal on the future of Greenland. We'll bring you the details. And later tonight, I'll be joined by State Assembly member Tony Simone live in studio to talk about a bill that he is behind that seeks to hold ICE agents accountable. For the best news, debate, and analysis of New York politics, join us inside City Hall. Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. I'm Errol Lewis. It might be the most polite political fight that we've seen in recent times in New York, but it is a fight nevertheless. A day after Governor Hochul said she does not want to raise taxes, Mayor Mamdani renewed his call for New York's wealthiest to pay more because he says the city needs the funding. Our Ayanna Harry joins me now with tonight's top story about the debate over taxing the rich in New York. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Errol. A Siena College poll last month found 65% of state voters believe New Yorkers who make more than $1 million a year should be taxed to pay for universal child care. In fact, it was part of Mamdani's winning campaign, but Governor Hochul continues to resist taxing the rich.
Now is the time to increase taxes on the most profitable corporations that do business in New York and the wealthiest residents that call the city home.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani standing his ground.
I'm very clearly continue to be supportive of taxing the wealthy.
Wednesday, Mamdani was pressed about his now very public disagreement with Governor Kathy Hochul over taxes. During campaign rallies and even during his inauguration, Mamdani supporters frequently chanted 3 words. Mamdani made the case to During a budget address Tuesday, Governor Hochul said the state can pay for an expansion of child care in New York City without raising taxes on anyone.
You can make historic investments without raising income taxes.
Hochul and Mamdani both appear to be standing firm, setting off what could be a tough series of negotiations. In the coming weeks, Mamdani will send representatives from his administration to Albany to fight for more city funding in the state budget. Mamdani saying he believes part of the reason why the state is on solid financial ground is because of the city's tax base.
The city makes up 54.5% of the state's tax revenue. It receives 40.5%. The state is on firm financial footing. The issue, however, is that the city is not.
Just last week, the city's comptroller warned the city faces a $2 billion shortfall, and the budget gap could grow to $10 billion next year. While Mayor Eric Adams has of the 5 boroughs, Mamdani believes
that is a direct result of Eric Adams' gross fiscal mismanagement.
And Mamdani also announced today that his administration is cracking down on hotel junk fees. These are mandatory fees that often don't show up until a person who stays in the hotel gets the final bill. We're talking about fees labeled as amenity fees, destination fees, resort fees. Mamdani says that once this crackdown goes into effect within the next month, when a tourist books a hotel room in New York City, they will know up front what they'll actually be paying.
So even if there were a tax on the wealthy and the extra billions of dollars were received by Albany, there's no guarantee that they would come back to the city, right?
That's correct. And so, you know, Zohran Mamdani is certainly making a novel argument, and he's also shifting his argument a bit. Previously, he was saying we need to tax the rich because that's how we'll pay for universal child care. Governor Hochul said, well, I found the money. We can still pay for universal raising taxes. But now Zohran Mamdani is pointing to some of the budget shortfalls that are projected for the city within the next few years. And he's saying when we look at this budget shortfall, when we look at how much New York City contributes to the state, the numbers just don't add up. And so we do need to add some revenue to New York City. He believes that revenue now, he's saying, should come from a tax on the wealthy to help the city recover.
It's one thing to have the mayor answer when reporters ask him, and he says, well, like, I support an increase. It's another for him to sort of launch a campaign, maybe take some folks up to Albany maybe try and put some political pressure directly on the governor. Do we have any sense of whether that's going to happen?
Mamdani is saying yes, that is precisely what is going to happen. And we know that this is the time of the year where, you know, the mayor meets with his team, his intergovernmental affairs team, and they get ready to lay out their priorities for Albany. And so Zohran Mamdani is making clear that this tax on the rich is, in his view, a top priority for New York City.
Okay, thanks very much, Ayanna. Meanwhile, Governor Kathy Hochul's $260 billion state spending plan still has to clear the Democratic-run state legislature. Some lawmakers have told New York One that they think she is excluding some key proposals, like the wealth tax that we just mentioned and free MTA buses. Others are arguing that the governor's focus is already divided because of her effort to get reelected. State House reporter Bernadette Hogan has more in this report.
She's got a lot to deal with because she's up for re-election.
It's still clear that Mayor Mamdani wants to see tax increases.
Before Governor Kathy Hochul's $260 billion state budget plan becomes law, it must clear both the 63-member state Senate and 150-member state Assembly. Democrats do hold strong majorities, but that doesn't mean Hochul has their stamp of approval.
If we find a way to do that outside of raising taxes, great. And if the money is short, then we'll have to have that harder conversation.
One top Democrat, whose district overlapped with Mayor Zohran Mamdani's old state assembly district, wants to turn Hochul's no to a free bus program to a yes.
I'm still about the free buses. The mayor, when he was in the assembly, and I got the pilot program passed 2 years ago. It was very successful. He's pushing to expand it. I joined him in that.
Although the governor wants to gift Mamdani an early win on mayoral control of city schools.
We're extending New York City mayoral control for 4 years.
While there's no new money to help the city comply with the state's smaller class size mandate, estimated to cost billions of dollars, one top proponent says he's talked to Mamdani about possibly amending the law.
If the city would like to finally reduce class sizes down to state and national norms, we're more than willing to work with them.
Although the governor includes new proposals aimed at curbing federal immigration enforcement, some argue she's not going far enough.
I was disappointed that she didn't say the one thing that we're all waiting for, which is New York for all. Afterwards, she released more information and that she talked about sensitive areas. I think that ship has sailed. I think the sensitive area is being black or brown out in the street.
Hochul promised no new taxes this year, drawing praise from lawmakers.
If the governor says that there's enough money in the reserves to get child care, universal child care, then who cares where it's coming from? At least, you know, we're just getting what we want done.
But she is including a brand new tax on Zyn nicotine pouches.
I think zinning comes with some health concerns. I think my doctor would say that he wouldn't want me to zin.
Besides the budget's April 1st deadline, Hochul and all members of the state legislature are up for re-election this fall. The current lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, is challenging Hochul for her seat, and she is vetting potential running mates.
We definitely want someone from downstate to balance what upstate folks need and want. And I think for me, I want someone who's going to be an active partner in the legislature.
Bernadette Hogan, New York One.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, a state judge has ruled that New York's 11th congressional district is unconstitutional and has ordered a new map to be drawn. We'll bring you those details in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
Payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV. I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. A state judge earlier today threw out the boundaries of the only congressional seat in the 5 boroughs that's represented by a Republican, ordering the state to redraw the district on the grounds that the current lines unconstitutionally diluted the votes of Black and Hispanic residents. Republicans are expected to appeal the decision. Our Dan Rivoli has been following this story and joins me now with the details. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. The redistricting wars have landed on New York's shores with this lawsuit from a Democratic plaintiff's attorney who filed the suit, basically arguing that the way that the congressional district covering Staten Island and southern Brooklyn is drawn dilutes the votes of Black and Latino voters. And this now will require a redrawing of the district, and that could have ramifications for districts around the city, maybe even control of the House of Representatives in the election. Judge Jeffrey Perlman of Manhattan sided with the petitioners, 2 voters from Staten Island, 2 voters from Manhattan, who argued that Black and Latino voters had their political power diluted under the district lines, as you see here. This district has been represented by Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, herself of Hispanic who is Hispanic of Cuban descent. Judge Perlman said that the petitioners proved that voting in the district is racially polarized, minority-backed candidates typically lose, and that Staten Island has a history of racial discrimination and segregation. Judge Perlman goes on to write in the order, "It is clear to the court that the current district lines of Congressional District 11 are a contributing factor in the lack of representation for minority voters." Republicans immediately denounced the decision, calling this an attempt by Democrats in Washington to steal an election from the only district in New York City that regularly elects a Republican. I spoke to Joe Borelli, a former city councilman from Staten Island and who was an expert witness in this case, about his thoughts on this decision and why he thinks Staten Island should stay politically tied to southern Brooklyn.
It should have been laughed out of court, and everyone can see that this is stealing an election. People in lower Manhattan have, an issue set that is similar to people in Staten Island versus southern Brooklyn. Again, is just completely ridiculous. It should have been thrown out the first moment it was brought to court. And I think the federal courts are going to see how plainly ridiculous this lawsuit was.
Now, the petitioners in this case had wanted the judge to order the lines redrawn so that Staten Island is in the same district as Lower Manhattan, but the judge did not endorse that as a remedy. Instead, he ordered New York's Independent Redistricting Commission to redraw the lines and have that in by February 6th, Errol.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So the question is, there are only about just under 500,000 voters in, or people in Staten Island, so you have to add another 250,000 or so. And the question is, well, where do you add them from? Should it be, Bay Ridge or southern Brooklyn or, Bath Beach or someplace? Or should it be Manhattan? And that's really what the fight is going to turn on.
And that's the issue for the commission. So Look, when I spoke with Joe Borelli, he said the idea you would want to tie Lower Manhattan, which has wealthy white neighborhoods, Tribeca, Battery Park City, and tie it to the largely suburban homeowner areas of Staten Island makes no sense unless you just wanted to elect a Democrat and get more Democrats in that district. That is not something the judge went so far as to endorse, so it remains to be seen. How do you remedy this? Could you tie, for example, Chinatown and have more minority voters there with Staten Island? Maybe Coney Island, that has also minority voters there, and have them join in political union with Staten Island. We'll have to see what the commission decides.
Yeah, right. I've seen some scenarios where you run it up through, Sunset Park, where there is because the district right now is something like 12% Asian, right? I mean, it's not a small group at this point.
Absolutely. And what is interesting is that some of the data that the judge relied on to make this decision argued that that racial groups in the district typically vote as a block. Like 90% black voters vote for the same candidate, a little less for Hispanic, but still a cohesive block, a little less for Asian voters, but again, still a majority vote as a block, and so too do the white voters. Now, what is unsaid in this decision is what they mean is when they vote as a block for a candidate, it typically means minority voters in that district vote for a Democrat, white voters, like 70% roughly when they vote as a block, they're voting for Republicans. Also interesting, though, the district has diversified. Full disclosure, I grew up on Staten Island. It went from about 85% white under the current district lines. They go back to 1980 when Staten Island started voting Republicans into federal office. It was like, largely a white district, but that's shrunk as a lot of people from other parts of the city. Now it's a bare majority, something like within the 50 to 60% range. So Staten Island has diversified, but still the judge clearly saw that there was racial discrimination and voter dilution with the way these lines are drawn.
Really interesting. Of course, we'll be hearing a lot more about this because they've got to get this done in time for the June elections, which means it has to be done in the next few weeks by early February.
That's right. And of course, there's going to be litigation on the maps that ultimately come out.
Back to court. Thanks very much, Dan. Meanwhile, the race for New York's 12th congressional district to replace retiring Representative Jerry Nadler is starting to take shape. At least 9 Democrats are vying for that seat, and some of them are taking the stage tonight at a candidates forum, and that's where we find our Bobby Kuza in Midtown with the latest. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening, Errol. A lot of interesting stuff happening with these congressional primaries. There may be no more competitive race, though, certainly no more crowded than this one for New York 12. This is the Manhattan Congressional District that has been represented by Congressman Nadler for decades. He is now retiring. And as you said, there are 9 candidates here tonight. There are at least 10 who are running in this race. And just to give you an idea of what the field is like, there are a couple of state lawmakers, Mike Lasher and Alex Borres, who are generally considered the strongest candidates in this race. You also have a Kennedy, Jack Schlossberg, who is the only grandson of President John F. Kennedy Jr. You've got Jamie Floyd, who is a well-known longtime journalist and television commentator. You've also got George Conway, who is a well-known critic and antagonist of President Trump. And that's just about half the field right there. So a competitive field. They're all here, 9 of them here tonight, going one by one, addressing voters representing some Democratic clubs on the east side of Manhattan. We're just underway. We already heard from Michael Lasher, though, the state assemblyman, who is thought to be the preferred candidate of Congressman Nadler, although Nadler has not actually yet endorsed in the race. He and others making a very spirited case for their own candidacies.
At a time when the stakes could not be higher. And I would submit to you that as you're trying to kind of wade through the noise, the slogans, the talking points, you should ask the question, who has the legislative record that indicates a capacity to take on Donald Trump and his band of fascists on issue after issue and get things done?
And as we mentioned, Jamie Floyd, who was a longtime television host, she was also a journalist working for NPR for many years. She was the second one up on stage. She has described herself as a radical moderate, trying to claim something of a more moderate lane in this field. Here's Floyd.
We think we're listening, but we're not hearing because we're shouting. And when we shout, the loudest voices get attention, and real people who are squeezed and scared are silenced. But I'm listening. I hear you. I am Jamie Floyd, and I'm a radical moderate.
And Errol, as you said, the field is only now really beginning to take shape, but this is all going to happen very quickly. These are Democratic clubs, mostly from the east side of Manhattan, that are putting on this event tonight, by the way, drawing a pretty big crowd, at least a couple hundred people here. Some of them will be voting as soon as next week on endorsements. So you're going to see the field begin to, if not winnow out, we're at least going to begin to see some of these candidates emerge as clear front runners. And again, you have to think that Michael Asher, Alex Borez are two of those, but many wild cards in this field. So this is going to be an interesting one. And remember, the June primary on June 23rd, coming up faster than you think. Errol?
And this includes the Upper East Side as well as the Upper West Side. There's a ton of money getting spent here, right? These candidates are raising eye-popping amounts of campaign cash.
Yes, including George Conway, who just jumped into the race, doesn't even hasn't lived in Manhattan for years. He raised at least $1 million initially. Alex Borez has raised a couple million. And there's outside spending already against some of these candidates, including money against Alex Borez from the AI industry. He has been at the forefront of regulating AI on the state level. So yes, there's going to be a lot of money flowing in this race.
All right. Thanks very much, Bobby. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll give you an update on what President Trump is now saying about his threat to acquire the Danish territory of Greenland. Stay with us.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood, because our city never stops moving.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories, but first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Today, President Trump announced the, quote, framework of a deal with NATO leaders on the future of Greenland. The announcement appears to end the possibility of the U.S. buying or even capturing the Danish territory. The president's threats to acquire Greenland had infuriated allies in Europe, threatening the very existence of NATO. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars joins us now from the Washington, D.C. Bureau with the details. Good evening, Taylor.
Good evening, Errol. This was another good example of how quickly and fluid the news cycle around President Trump is. Hour by hour from the moment he touched down in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum, he was making headlines related to Greenland, even though his advisors wanted him to make news relating to making housing more affordable. But here's what played out. President Donald Trump emerged from a meeting with the Secretary General of NATO in Davos, Switzerland Wednesday, claiming a deal had been reached on Greenland.
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. And I think it puts everybody in a really good position.
The president announced it on social media, saying a framework of a future deal had been reached, and he would not be imposing tariffs against countries who disagreed with his stance on Greenland after all. Later, he sidestepped a question about whether the deal fulfilled his goal of acquiring Greenland.
They're working the details of the deal, but it's what's called an infinite deal. It's forever.
Trump announced the deal 5 hours after addressing the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. In his first speech, he said he wanted to immediately begin negotiations to acquire Greenland, even though Denmark, which owns the massive island, said repeatedly it was not for sale.
You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
While the president appeared to rule out using military force to take over the Arctic territory, he insisted owning it is crucial for national security purposes and could help strengthen the NATO alliance, something European leaders disagree with. The NATO Secretary General then met with Trump and delicately tried to remind the president that the alliance will be there for the U.S. like it was after the 9/11 terror attacks.
So you can be assured, absolutely, if ever the U.S. will be under attack, your allies will be with you. Absolutely.
Now, another example of how fluid this day has been, Errol, is that when the day first started, the European Union actually announced that it was pausing finalizing a trade deal with the U.S. because it was concerned and frustrated with what President Trump was saying about Greenland and the fact that he had threatened tariffs against these countries that were not supportive of his idea. But as the president emerged from that meeting with the NATO Secretary General, those tariffs are now apparently off the table, and negotiators are back returning to the table to talk about Greenland. It is a whirlwind, it is fluid, and like I said, it all goes against what the Trump administration has been telling us was going to be the president's focus, which was talking about housing today.
And so, Taylor, when it comes to national defense and the ability of the U.S. military to make use of Greenland, nothing has changed, right? I mean, we've always had the ability to build bases there, and we've maintained a presence there for decades now.
That's right, and there is a U.S. military base there right now. There have been others in the past, and there's always been a good relationship with the Greenlandic officials, Denmark officials who technically own Greenland, and the broader EU and NATO alliance, because everybody agrees that they want the U.S. military and the U.S. military's might on their side. That's part of the reason officials from Denmark especially have been confused by President Trump's goals here. When Denmark's foreign minister came to the White House last week, I was there covering that meeting, and he was saying we have always been cooperating with the U.S. and we're continuing to be open to that, so we're not really sure what you're looking for now. The president has gone back and forth with why he views ownership as critical to national security, but now he's saying this framework will be promising, and we're waiting to see the details of it.
All right, thanks very much, Taylor. It is time for a break. Coming up, there's a renewed focus on holding ICE agents accountable following that fatal shooting of a woman in Minneapolis by a federal ICE agent earlier this month. I'm going to talk it over with State Assembly member Tony Simone next. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Burke.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum fiber broadband network, and factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
I'm Chris Jakomick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times.
So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackamick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
What they're doing now is excessive. They need to be reined in. It is wrong. Go after the real criminals, with which you're not doing what the president told you to do, because you're only going to go after the worst of the worst. After high school students, you're going after people just working at a pizzeria. It is so wrong.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was Governor Hochul in a conversation with our sister station in Albany yesterday about the ramped-up federal immigration enforcement that has sparked outrage nationally. During her State of the State speech, the governor said that she would allow New Yorkers to sue ICE agents in state court for civil rights violations. She also vowed to prevent them from entering certain, quote, sensitive locations without a judicial warrant. Meanwhile, there are a number of proposed bills in the state legislature that seek to keep ICE agents in check. One of them is called the Radar Act. That's short for Reporting Arrests, Detentions, Actions, and Removals, which would require the state to create an online database to track the deployment of ICE agents. Joining me now with more on all of this is the lead sponsor of that bill. It's State Assembly Member Tony Simone. His neighborhoods in Manhattan include all or part of Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, and Midtown. Welcome.
Thank you, Errol. Thank you for having me on.
Tell us about this Radar Act. Exactly how would it work?
So I want to start by saying on January 7th, there was a tragedy that occurred. Renee Nicole Good was murdered by our federal government. And we mourn her death. She left behind a child and a wife. We also mourn many of the detainees and people who have been kidnapped, mothers separated from their kids, people who've served in our military. ICE right now is out of control. The Radar Act simply sets up a database, a state first-in-the-nation database, working with the Division of Criminal Justice Services. So it's anonymous. Right now, we're depending on these amazing groups like Chelsea United, Harlem United, and other groups, Open Arms, that are tracking on social media what they're seeing. But we can't just depend on our citizens who are being frightened by ICE. We need the state to step up. The Radar Act doing, and I also have the MELT Act, which unmasks ICE, will stop them from doing it in the shadows.
Okay, well, let me, first of all, I looked at some of your materials. I did not realize there's a lot more going on than a lot of people realize. From January through July of last year, New York City alone got 6,000 ICE detainer requests, which is a 400% increase over prior years. In March 2025, ICE and its partner agencies arrested 133 people across upstate New York. And in Nassau County, they've detained over 3,000 people last year. So this is not a small amount of data that you'd be collecting under this act.
Correct. And why we think it's vital is it's about transparency and accountability. After the murder of Renee Good, DHS lied. They've been lying throughout this, saying they're mostly going after criminals, when the New York Times reported in other publications that the vast majority are not criminals. We have a fascist White House who's using a secret police that are masked to terrorize citizens, legal immigrants, people with work visas and green cards, and it has to stop. I've said this before. I don't say it lightly. We're living in the midst of an autocracy, and states have the obligation constitutionally to protect its citizens.
In this case, would the employees of the Department of Criminal Justice Services have better access to data than some of the grassroots groups you were describing?
Well, it would work in conjunction with groups, with state legislators, what people see in the street, but they would be the one the agency working across with DOCS and other state agencies to track, to see what arrests, who's being kidnapped, who's not getting due process.
Let's talk about the MELT Act. It would ban the use of face coverings by ICE agents. What is the status of that?
So it's moving. We have many sponsors in both houses, the state Senate and the Assembly. It would also not only unmask ICE, because when police wear masks, democracy loses its face. And it would also require, it's not just for ICE, all law enforcement. It would require that you have an identifiable badge, a name, in case, which we've seen in many cases lately, if ICE is breaking the law, an individual will be held accountable.
Last week when I spoke to the governor on this program, she said she does not, as far as she's concerned, have the authority to ban federal agents from wearing masks. Is that you have a different understanding?
I do. We've talked to constitutional scholars. We've talked to a Columbia law professor, and the states do have the right to monitor conduct. We can't stop law enforcement, and no one's saying they shouldn't be enforcing immigration law, but it's the conduct. They've crossed the line. We've checked with the supremacy clause, which predates the Constitution. States were set up in a federalist system to police and require safety for all New Yorkers. As a legislator and the governor, we have the mandate. We should be, because Congress has not stepped up yet, to protect our fellow citizens.
Okay. You have any sense of whether or not this is going to pass?
I'm hopeful. We have more sponsors every day. One of the biggest concerns and complaints beyond affordability and public safety from throughout my district, I'm hearing from my colleagues' district, is ICE is out of control. These immigrant rates out of control. You don't solve the immigration problem this way. You do it by comprehensive immigration reform, which Trump put politics over people. You don't do it this way. Mass deportations do not work in the long run. It hurts our economy. It hurts affordability. There are people, businesses who are complaining to me in my district, they don't have enough workers. It hurts the economy in the long run. And it's being done in a state-like authoritarian way, like Russia, and we need to end it.
One of your colleagues, or some of your colleagues, have introduced the New York for All Act. I don't know if you're in support of that. It would prohibit police agencies from assisting federal immigration agents and sharing information. What's your sense of that bill?
I'm a co-sponsor. I think it's necessary. It doesn't say that we wouldn't coordinate with them on criminal matters. It's on civil matters, and it's so we don't do the job of federal agents. We've seen that on Long Island with people, and they're literally coordinating with ICE, many times doing unlawful actions against our citizens and legal immigrants.
And civil actions include the underlying question of someone's status here, which is a civil offense, right?
Correct.
In general, as you go into this new session, what's your feeling about this idea of increasing taxes on high-income earners? The mayor has been pretty vehement about it. That was our lead story tonight. The governor doesn't seem to want to go there, and in fact says that she has unanticipated revenue to the tune of $17 billion, and that there's no particular need to raise taxes.
I'm a big supporter of universal child care with a threshold. Clearly, if you can afford a nanny, you don't need it. But I think beyond not being able to afford rent or to buy a home, one of the reasons why my parents left New York State, so many families are leaving. Child care is one of the second most expensive things that they have to pay for, almost a person's, sometimes a salary. So I support looking at current revenue. I think what the governor's doing is a great start. But I've said all along, I've always been a supporter of those who are well-to-do should pay their fair share. I'm not necessarily saying we should raise income taxes at this point. I think we're going to keep the corporate tax increase, but I do support it if we're ensuring the money is going efficiently to programs to help make New York more affordable.
And you'll be looking at those numbers, I guess, as the session gets underway.
We will. Any day now, literally next week.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Great to talk with you. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll talk much more about federal immigration enforcement when I'm joined by my weekly politics panel. Stay with us.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer. As chief meteorologist at New York One, I'm honored to be able to help New Yorkers plan their day.
morning, noon, or night. Our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts with your weather on the ones on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Mayor Mamdani was greeted like a celebrity yesterday on the daytime program The View, and he used the opportunity to call for the abolition of ICE. Here's a little bit of what that sounded like.
I am in support of abolishing ICE. I'm tired of waking up every day and seeing a new image of someone being dragged out of a car, dragged out of their home, dragged out of their life. What we need to see is humanity. And there is a way to care about immigration in this city and in this country with a sense of humanity. What we're seeing from ICE is not it, and we have not seen that from them in a long, long time.
Joining me now to talk about that and much more is my weekly politics panel. We have political analyst Robert George here and Margaret Rourke, who is a professor of political science at Manhattan University. Thank you both for being here. Professor, is this a winning position for Democrats nationally or even here in New York?
It's becoming the more popular position nationally. Many Americans are, I think, shocked by the efforts that the Trump administration is going to deport immigrants, to arrest citizens, not believing that they're not immigrants, and breaking into people's homes. The latest news we hear from ICE is that they've been sharing training material that says you don't need a judicial warrant to break into somebody's home and arrest them.
Wow, and unfortunately, the polling suggests that even as his other favorables are declining, President Trump seems to have a lot of support when it comes to his immigration tactics.
He has support in the broad picture. But it's definitely fallen quite a lot over the last several weeks because of the depictions of ICE. And I think, unlike defund the police, which backfired spectacularly on Democrats, I think abolish ICE has a little bit more foundation to it. Defund the police didn't work because, despite certain incidents, people know their local police and so forth, and they know what they do and what they do for them. But now, seeing masked federal agents in the middle of one of our larger cities, acting as if there's no accountability, as if the Constitution doesn't mean anything to them, that phrase, abolish ICE, I think, has a little bit more salience.
Yeah, let's turn then to the ongoing turmoil in the streets of Minneapolis. It shows no signs of slowing down or reaching resolution, even after the killing of Renee Good.
We are law-abiding. We have been acting within the law. There is nothing that we have done wrong. And the fact that this is happening to leaders should make everybody Republican and Democrat, livid, furious. This is about the underpinnings of our Constitution and the endurance of our republic. And if we allow this kind of political retribution to take place, it's just going to continue happening.
That's the mayor of Minneapolis, of course, who was under investigation now by the Trump Justice Department, I guess purely based on some of his statements objecting to what is going on out there. Is this going to turn into something like similar to what we saw 5 or 6 years ago when the George Floyd killing actually became not just a local issue, but really the national basis of themes that carried into the election?
I think certainly. Minneapolis right now is ground zero for a number of Trump policies, obviously specifically on immigration, but also the actions and the assertion by the Trump administration that they're, in a sense, they're above the law. The fact that the agent involved in the shooting of Renee Good, there's no investigation needed, because I said we put the video out there, explains everything. We're not going to be doing any investigation, preventing the local authorities from looking into it themselves. So there are a number of issues, both the specifics and the larger constitutional questions that have been arisen.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell when local protests are going to go viral, go national, so to speak. And it's doubly hard in these sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah.
Much of the country
You gotta
really not going to see a lot of people out on the street.
Yeah, you got to give it to those Minnesota protesters. You know it's cold out there. But, you know, yesterday there were 800 protests around the country, like inspired by what's going on in Minnesota. It made the front page of the Daily News, which I don't usually see protests on the front page of the Daily News. I think a lot of people are imagining what it would be like if ICE were invading their town the way that they're occupying Minneapolis right now. And to have the mayor of Minneapolis be investigated by the Justice Department, Trump claims that Biden had weaponized the Justice Department against him. And what do we see now? You know, Trump has an enemies list and is adding people to it and having them investigated.
Tim, the governor as well.
Right.
Both of them being investigated. So yes, it's not surprising that Minneapolis is becoming ground zero right now.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. I've got more to talk about with this politics panel. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
We have so many ways to stay connected. A single touch can bring us closer to the families we love, the friends we know, and the city we share. And Spectrum helps us keep connected throughout the day, every day. Including more ways to watch New York One as a Spectrum Internet customer. Watch Spectrum News New York One on the Spectrum News app, available on all your favorite devices.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Tomorrow, some morning sunshine possible. Clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One. Weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum and Xfinity customers.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
There's been few and far between investigations of insider trading. And we know that 1 in 3 members are actually buying and selling stock, but 1 in 9 members aren't actually disclosing those purchases like they're supposed to be. We also know, which is a big red flag, that members of Congress have a higher return rate on their stock portfolios, 17.5% higher return rate than the S&P 500.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where I'm once again joined by my politics panel, Robert George and Margaret Rourke. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who you just saw there, is also running the National Senate campaign strategy for Democrats, saying that even if she gets the law passed that she was just describing there, that would ban stock trading by all members of Congress, she expects candidates to run on the economy and on affordability, saying that ethics and these kind of questions don't necessarily move the needle on voting. That says something about the population, or at least that's her assumption.
I mean, it's not going to hurt them in the campaign to talk about it, but I think people are more concerned about affordability in the economy. I think she's making a good call on that.
You know, yeah, it burns me that, you know, people are trading on inside information about government actions that they themselves are taking or privileged information that they get. It just bugs me.
Well, I agree 100%, but I think Margaret is right that affordability, maybe constitutionality, accountability, things like that will be most resonant with voters. The Trump administration is probably the most corrupt in history, just in terms of just factually speaking. But at the same time, this particular issue that Kirsten Gillibrand is raising, it was blocked several times in past Congresses by Nancy Pelosi herself, whose husband made millions in the stock market. Many people who believe it was because of Nancy Pelosi's insider knowledge. So on that issue, on that particular issue, it really is at both sides, and the Democrats do not come to this with clean hands.
Yeah, I mean, you could link it up. You could say, you know, you can't afford, you know, beef or eggs or whatever it might be, and meanwhile, these people are doing X, Y, and Z.
Well, I mean, I think the clearest thing Democrats can say is, you know, you're having difficulty, you know, buying things, for your dinner table. The president of the United States is expanding a golden ballroom. That's the kind of image that.
Well, yeah, that's a visual for sure.
And when you say that everybody's doing it, which it sounds like she's saying, it's kind of hard then to say, like, we expect you to give us credit. Like, people think everybody in politics is dirty.
True.
So, you know, it's not a winning issue that way.
As we reported earlier, at least 9 candidates are running for the congressional seat that's currently held by Jerry Nadler, who, of course, is retiring. What is the path to victory in this race, and who should we be keeping an eye on? It's a cast of thousands up there.
And there's nobody who really stands out as the obvious choice at this point, so I think we're going to have to watch how it goes. Sometimes we have a race where you're like, this person really could do it. But I looked at the candidates yesterday, and I just thought, it'll be nice to get to know them.
I have a special announcement I'd like to make.
Oh, no. There's no more room on the stage, Robert.
But seriously, you've got, there is a whole host, and it really is a little bit too early to make a statement. I mean, we just had a mayor's race where somebody that almost nobody had heard about ended up zooming forward and becoming mayor, beating a number of well-known individuals. So I think it's a good idea to we'll keep our powder dry and see fundraising and things like that, and see who starts to have a message that resonates.
And finally, I wanted to go back to something you had mentioned. There's a graphic that accompanied a remarkable editorial by the New York Times, which estimates that President Trump and some of his family members have enriched themselves to the tune of at least $1.4 billion in the last year alone. The majority of that came from selling cryptocurrency. Do we need a law to prevent a repeat of this, or is this going to be the sort of the new norm for American presidents to just kind of come in and sort of ransack the place?
Gillibrand can add this to her list of things to do. We definitely need to strengthen our laws that prevent presidents from profiting personally from being in the White House. And Congress has to reestablish its backbone to use the laws that we have and say that things that are not allowed should not be happening.
Yeah, I mean, you'd almost have to sort of preemptively say, the answer is no, unless you are given permission. And that's kind of what the emoluments clause of the Constitution is supposed to do.
Well, that's what I was about to say. There is something in the Constitution that is supposed to prevent these things. Trump basically ignored it in the small during his first term, and is now completely running amok. And speaking of the ethics issue, it's kind of hilarious that Republicans ran in 2024 pointing to Hunter Biden and it's either the laptop and his questionable deal making and stuff like that, but the Trump family has taken it, not to 11, but to infinity. Infinity and beyond.
Well, they need some specific enforcement mechanisms. That's where a law would come in handy, because you're right. I mean, it says in the Constitution you're not supposed to do certain things. It doesn't say what happens if you go ahead and ignore the Constitution and do those things.
And you'd have to. And the thing is, it's also tightening rules on immediate family members as well, which is where even Trump has gotten around some of this.
Okay, Robert, George, Margaret Groark, thank you both for being here. Great talking with you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
That's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything.
Hey, brother. Be careful.
Movies.
I've got this condition where I don't feel pain.
You're a superhero.
No. Series.
There was another murder in the building.
Sports. Reality.
Here's to a summer you'll never forget.
News.
Here's a look at today's top story.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
Even more of your favorites with live TV.
Welcome into First Take.
Stream across your devices and watch anywhere, at home or out and about. It's the entertainment experience you've been waiting for. Streaming apps included at no extra cost.
Scott Van Pelt, get a good look.
With live TV and on demand. All together, all in one place for you to enjoy.
It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.